This is the update that so many people have been waiting for. David has officially been arrested, and we are so much closer to getting justice for Celeste. And also, for the first time in this case, we are no longer relying on leaks or speculation. We now have confirmed actual official records. I'm going to show you those records, walk you through exactly what happened, where he is right now, and what happens next, step by step, especially for those of you who've never followed a case like this before. So let's get into what we know. And really quick, for anyone who's new to this case or just needs a refresher, this case involves David Burke, a 21-year-old singer who was up and coming, getting momentum, and in the middle of a tour when a body of a young girl was found in the front trunk of his Tesla. Since then, this case has been developing behind the scenes, and as of yesterday, an official arrest was made. So now we're finally starting to get confirmed details, and that's what we have up on the screen. This is what we know. Here's what's confirmed. He was arrested on April 16th at 5 p.m. The arresting agency is LAPD Robbery Homicide Division. He was booked that same night at 10:12 p.m. and the charge level is a felony with no bail. Now let's pause right here for a second because this already clears up something important. There were reports going around, even on YouTube, saying that he was arrested probably earlier in the week, like Tuesday, and that it was being kept secret until now. And this is obviously not accurate because according to official records, which we now have, this arrest happened on April 16th and we are seeing it in real time. So let's be a little bit analytical about this. Let's see what this tells us. From the arrest at 5 p.m. to the booking at 10:12 p.m., that's relatively a quick turnaround for LAPD, especially in a case like this. It suggests that it was planned, coordinated, and that everything was already in place. This wasn't kind of random or rushed. This suggests really controlled, warrant-based arrest. Also, the fact that it was handled by Robbery Homicide Division. This is one of the most serious units within LAPD. They handle very high-level, complex investigations. And then we have the big one here, no bail. That immediately tells us this is being treated as a serious high-risk case, and the court doesn't intend at all for this guy to be released during this process. So again, for the first time in this case, we have something tangible. We're not guessing, we're not piecing things together. We're looking at confirmed, documented facts. And most importantly, this means that the case is moving forward. And that matters because at the center of all this is Celeste. And this is the step that people, including myself, have been waiting for in terms of justice for her and her family. All right, so let's talk about the arrest itself. I'm going to show you the footage that TMZ posted. This is the actual arrest in the Hollywood Hills. And something to note right away, this is not the same house that people had been talking about before, the one that he used to stay in, but it still is in that same general area. Now, you can watch closely and see multiple officers. You can see that everything's calm, everything is controlled. There is no chaos, no running, there's no confusion. And you can look at what he's wearing, gray sweats, white sneakers, black t-shirt, very casual. Now, we could also be pretty analytical about this because it doesn't look like a raid, a chase, or something unexpected in the moment. It looks like something that was handled in a very controlled, very coordinated way. This is what we call a warrant-based arrest, meaning that law enforcement already had everything in place before showing up. And also we can ask the question, did he know this was coming? A lot of people will say, was he ambushed? Was he surprised? And it could go either way. Possibility number one, his attorney may have already been in communication, which would mean that this was anticipated. They could have told him, hey, this is going to happen today, and he could have been waiting for it, right? Possibility two would be that law enforcement kept things tight and executed strategically, meaning it could have still felt like a surprise in that moment for him. He could have been doing any number of things at the time or not. I mean, it could have gone either way. So now let's talk about what happens after the arrest. Where is he right now? So he was taken into LAPD custody. Right now, this is just a temporary holding. This is not his final housing yet. What happens next is that he will likely be transferred to LA County Sheriff custody. And most likely, I think he might be placed in the Twin Towers Correctional Facility in downtown LA. You can see it when you're driving off the 10 freeway going into downtown. I think likely he will be at the Twin Towers because this is the main intake jail for men in Los Angeles, but it's not the only possibility. He could also be taken to the Men's Central Jail, the MCJ, also downtown right next to the Twin Towers, or he could also be taken to a more remote, larger complex, which is in a little bit north of LA in Castaic. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correct, but it's usually one of those three facilities. But based on the high profile case, the timing, the intake process, I'm going to say that it's likely going to be the Twin Towers. I think that's going to be the starting point because LAPD will transfer him over to the sheriff, the LA County Sheriff, which are the men in the greenish uniforms. So now if he goes to Twin Towers, I'm going to be real for a second because I've personally been inside of the Twin Towers before, so I'm not speaking off assumptions here. That place is not nice at all, to put it lightly. I mean, I personally think it's pretty loud, it's really cold, it's very controlled, very heavy energy, and honestly, overall, I just think it's a pretty harsh environment. And when people ask if he's going to be in general population, no, very unlikely. Because of the nature of the charges, the media attention, his public profile, celebrity status, he will most likely be placed in protective custody. Even if he was in celebrity status, just due to the nature of the charges that we can expect him to have involving minors, I think that the general inmate population is not very nice to persons with these charges against them. And I think preemptively, law enforcement kind of protects you by putting you in protective custody for that reason, because I'm not going to tell you what they do to, let's just continuing. So protective custody is not meant to be punishing, but sometimes it feels like solitary confinement or the special housing unit, SHU, or the SHU, how some inmates call it. What his day might look like realistically would be like in a cell most of the time in protective custody, limited out of cell time, limited yard time, very minimal contact with others, waiting. Lots of waiting. So the very first step in the courtroom is called an arraignment. And in California, after somebody's arrested, they have about 48 hours to be brought before a judge for their arraignment. And this does not include weekends. So for this case, this could happen today, Friday, but more realistically, probably Monday. So if you're asking what even is an arraignment, think of it like it's the official start of the court case. This is where the charges are read out loud. The judge explains his rights and he enters a plea. Will he be in the courtroom like physically? Not necessarily, because he's in custody. This will very likely be done over Zoom or some kind of video. So he will appear on a screen from custody, from jail, while the courtroom is still in session. So the big moment, the plea, this is what everybody kind of listens for. And let's be real, he's almost 100% going to say not guilty. And I know some of you are thinking, but what if he is guilty? Even then, people still plead not guilty at this stage because the defense hasn't seen all the evidence yet. Nothing's been challenged yet. No deals have been discussed. So this really is not about the truth yet. This is about just starting the legal process. But very important, what else can we learn from this? A lot, you guys. This is where we're gonna finally hear what the exact charges are, the penal code. For example, like murder under PC 187. We're going to get some details. We're going to know if it's first degree or second degree and if there's any additional charges. So this is our first time getting real legal clarity, not just speculation or anything like that. So the arraignment could happen today, most likely Monday. It's very, very short. They're going to be like, hey, here are your charges. How do you plead? He's going to likely say not guilty. And then that is the start of that court process. I will have to note, though, the charges are not final. The charge can always change or more charges can come later. Again, this is just the beginning of that court process. Okay, so after that arraignment, this is the part that everyone really is waiting for. The next court date is called that preliminary hearing. And what is this? This is where we're going to get the preview of the case. It's not a full trial, it's not a final decision, but for the first time, we're going to learn what happened. For the first time, the prosecution has to say, here's what we believed happened, and here's the evidence that we have. And it's not going to be a very long one, right? It's going to be like summary, like bullet point style. But we will get some answers. We'll finally know what happened outside of speculation, outside of leaks, outside of us filling gaps. We're going to have some solid facts to go by that the prosecution is going to be presenting. So when does this happen? Technically, about 10 court days after the arraignment. So it sounds like pretty soon, right? But let's be real. In cases like this, it's probably not gonna happen that fast. Why it's gonna likely be delayed? Because his defense team is not gonna rush this, especially if he has a high-level attorney. They're gonna ask for discovery. And what is discovery? This is pretty huge. This is when the prosecution has to turn over all their receipts, the police reports, the forensic reports, all the digital evidence, which are texts, phone data, Tesla data, and also all the witness statements. Basically, everything that they plan to use against him, his defense attorney wants all of that. So during discovery, that's when the real work for David's attorney is going to start. They're going to go through everything with a fine-tooth comb, line by line, building a timeline, consulting with their experts, which are their forensic experts, their digital experts, their medical experts. They're going to be looking for inconsistencies. They're going to be looking for any mistakes. They're going to be looking for anything that they can challenge, because their goal is not to prove that David is innocent right away. Their goal is to create doubt. So instead of those 10 days, this discovery process could realistically take a few weeks, even a few months. And that's not going to be like, oh, it's so delayed because something's wrong. No, that is just David's defense team's strategy. But that preliminary hearing is going to tell us a lot. This is where we're going to move from rumors, theories, TikTok breakdowns to actual structured evidence in court, which are very, very public. We might hear at this point, we might hear a timeline of events. Who saw who and when, all the digital evidence, some texts, some locations, some activity, summaries of witness statements. So they're not going to read you line by line. They're just going to do like the bullet points, and how the prosecution is framing the case. We're finally going to learn that. And this is very much key, because all of this together will point to the prosecution's conclusion. They're going to say, all of this cohesively in unity is all leading towards whatever they believe happened, basically. But we still won't know everything. Again, it's a summary. So let's manage our expectations here, because we still might get a lot more questions, right, than answers, because not all the evidence is going to be shown. And also because some details may stay sealed, especially if it involves other minors, maybe like Celeste friends. Maybe they were witnesses and they're doing some witness statements. We will not know their identity and we will not know what they say. Some things may be sealed and stay protected, again, because it may involve minors. So I'm just saying, as an example, we may not get everything because it's a summary and because some things might stay sealed. So we're going to get some structure. We're going to get some summary. We're going to know what happened in terms of the prosecution believing what happened. But we will not get the full play-by-play, the full picture, right? But what happens at the end of that preliminary hearing? That's what I want to talk about next. So what is the judge deciding here? At the end, the judge is not deciding if he's guilty here. Guilty or not guilty, that's not what we're doing here. We're only going to be deciding, the judge is going to be deciding, is there enough evidence for this case to go to trial? And the standard for this is very low. Relative. It's called probable cause. So even if the case isn't perfect, the judge will probably say that it could still move forward. Hopefully. Fingers crossed, right? Okay, so now quick pause here because I want to talk about this for a second. I've been seeing the YouTube videos. I've been reading the Reddit threads, and I get it. A lot of people are frustrated. A lot of people are asking, why hasn't David been arrested yet? Why is this taking so long? Did LAPD mess this up? What are the conspiracies? Why didn't they take this and that into evidence? Why wasn't this and that kept in evidence for longer? And I understand where that's coming from, because when something like this happens, you want answers immediately. We want action immediately. But here's the reality. This is exactly how a strong case is built. Law enforcement and prosecutors are not moving based on public pressure, internet timelines, or what feels fast or slow to us, the public. They are moving based on one thing: what is going to hold up in court? Because let me just say this, the absolute worst thing that could happen is rushing this. If they move too fast, paperwork could be sloppy, they could miss something, and then the search warrants could be challenged, evidence could be thrown out, timelines can fall apart or be questioned. And once that happens, the defense steps right in. David's lawyers, all they need to do is to create doubt, like, actually, and they don't have to prove anything. They just have to poke holes. So if law enforcement makes even one critical mistake early on, that could damage the entire case, even from the beginning, even from this preliminary hearing. And that's why cases like this takes time, especially when it's a high profile. There's a celebrity with a lot of eyes, there's money involved, they have resources, they have strong defense attorneys, because the prosecution already knows this is gonna be heavily challenged. LAPD knows that. So instead of rushing, they build. Again, I spoke about this in my other videos. It's like a Jenga tower that you're building, right? You build and then you verify. You tell your supervisor to check this, and then the supervisor's supervisor double checks everything. So when we finally get here to this stage, it was not a delay, it was preparation. And at the center of all this is justice for Celeste. And justice is not about being fast, it's about being solid. So now that we have a little bit better understanding of why a case like this may have taken some time, we can continue, because if the judge finds that there is enough evidence, this is when the case officially moves forward and becomes highly detailed. So in summary, he likely will be arraigned on Monday, and then a preliminary hearing will likely happen not in 10 days, but in my opinion, if I had to guess, maybe like in a month, month and a half, or I don't know, maybe sometimes even longer. I'm not too sure, but that preliminary hearing is going to be very telling. It is public information. We're going to have actual solid records of what the prosecution is going to be presenting as their version of what happened. And then the defense, David's defense, is going to be able to cross-examine at this point, and then the judge is going to determine whether there's enough probable cause to continue moving it forward. And then all the pretrial stuff is going to happen, and that's going to take a lot more months. But I will continue to talk about this case and bring you updates as they come, because at the end of the day, this is about justice for Celeste. This is about her family getting answers, getting closure, and seeing this process all the way through. Behind all of this, behind the headlines, the updates, the legal process, this is about a little girl. A little girl, I get so emotional again. A little girl who was robbed of the rest of her life. And me, as a mom with 2 daughters in high school, this hits me in a very real way. And I can't help but think about Celeste's future, Celeste's family, everything that should have been that now isn't. And that's why I care about this case, because it matters, and it matters to me, and I know it matters to a lot of you. So I'll continue to follow this case closely and share updates as we move forward, with respect, with care, and always keeping Celeste at the center of it. Thank you guys. Bye.